Hello and welcome to the One Income Family Podcast. It's the first episode of the month, meaning we are going to be diving deep into what happened in my budget this past month. So definitely get your boots ready because it's gonna be deep, right? You're gonna find out what I planned, what I didn't plan, how I handled things, and what I could have done differently. So go grab your headphones and a nice cool drink, and let's dive into what I did so that you can learn from my mistakes and make your budget even better. Do you find it hard to save or get out of debt? Are you constantly searching for ways to save money and live on a budget? Do you have big dreams only to be stopped by not sticking to your budget? Are you ready for financial freedom? Then you, mama, are in the right place. Welcome to the One Income Family Podcast, where you will learn what it looks like to budget on one income, how to partner with God in your finances, how to budget in a way that's easy to stick to, and how to cut costs and save money, all so that you can start building wealth. It is my mission to equip you with these tools so that you can live in abundance regardless of the amount in your account. Hey, I'm Molly, a budget coach for stay-at-home moms, and I know what it's like to struggle on one income. I've lived paycheck to paycheck, relied on being frugal, and failed many budgets until I learned how to budget without tracking. This has allowed my family to pay off debt and build wealth all on one income. So, if you are ready for financial freedom, then go grab that stroller, plug in those headphones, and let's get to it. Before we jump into today's episode, I want to invite you to grab a budget checkup. You, my friend, are here listening to this podcast because you're struggling to stick to your budget, and there is absolutely no shame in that. But instead of staying stuck in this continuous cycle of budgeting just to throw it out the window, I want to challenge you to break it. It's time for you to take your first step towards financial success, and all you have to do is book a call with me so that I can show you how to set up a budget on one income that makes budgeting simple and easy to stick to. Go to calendly.com/Molly Bunnell and book your call today. That's calendly.com/Molly with a Y, B as in boy, ENELL. Alrighty, so it's time to dive into my budget. Yeah, let's just say that last month was not the greatest. A lot of things happened that I did not plan for, but before we get into that, let's just talk about what I do plan for. So I have a base budget that I take and I run with every single month. It stays the same unless something changes budget wise, and it just is recurring. It's what I have my system set up on, where the same amount is transferred into all of my cash envelopes per se, digital cash envelopes I should say, and it's just the same. It's reoccurring every single pay period, right? And so that's the stuff that I know I can rely on, that I know is going to be saved for, it's going to be paid, all that stuff is fine and dandy, right? So then what I have to do is I have to fill out my paycheck budget, which is essentially just allocating the remainder of what is left over in my account, right? So this month, I knew that I was going to have a birthday party for my daughter, even though her birthday was in April. It's the end of April. So we had a wedding that day. So we ended up pushing her birthday party to the next weekend. So I knew that I was going to have this birthday party that I was going to have to plan for. I also knew that I was going to have to go pick up my nephew in Omaha because he was flying in from where his dad lives in Louisiana. It's Louisiana or Mississippi. I can never remember. It's one of those two. But that's where my brother moved to. And so he was flying back to spend some time with me and my dad and his mom. And so I knew I had to plan for that trip, right? Because it was a 4-hour trip to go pick him up from where we live. And that's just one way. So 8-hour round trip, right? So I had to plan for that. I also knew that we were planning on putting up some new soffit and fascia around our house that was made out of metal instead of wood, because the wood just continues to rot out and we have birds in the house and it's a disaster. So I knew that I was planning for that stuff. So that's all the stuff that I knew that I had to be able to pay for. Some of it I had saved up, some of it needed to be saved up, as things were going. And so, yeah, I knew that stuff was going on, and I was able to put the remainder of my money towards that. I also still wanted to be able to put $1,000 extra towards our car payment to help get that paid off, because there have been so many doctor bills and things going on this past year. Like, it's been crazy. I feel like my life has been living at the doctor this past year, which is not normal for me. Like, we normally have a pretty healthy family, but that was not the case this year so far. But anyways, we had like those bills that we needed to pay for and all that stuff. So I was able to allocate my money towards all of that. But this was one of those months that I was just so overwhelmed with everything that I hate to say it, but I did throw the budget out the window. And I'm not proud of it. I mean, I was still able to do a lot of things that I wanted to do, but I kind of gave in to my husband's persistent wanting to eat out all the time, because we did do that a lot. But it's just because we had so much unexpected stuff. So I should say, when we eat out too much, it's because we have to go to town. So we live 45 minutes from the nearest big town, I should say. We live 15 minutes from like a town that's got about 400 people in it. So there really aren't any stores that I can buy anything except for like gas or gas station food, right? And so when we have to go to town, since it's 45 minutes one way, it's usually during either lunch or supper, and we don't get something made up by the time we have to go if it's unexpected, so we have to eat out, right? And so that's usually, I say that I gave into him like wanting to eat out, but it's not like we were sitting at home and he's like, oh, hey, let's go eat out because I want to eat out. It's more like we're at home. It's time to eat. The kids are going to get hungry. We kind of have to eat. So that's kind of my definition of eating out too much, right? So it doesn't happen too much because it's usually on the weekends that we end up going. But since last weekend because I am recording this a week in advance. Last weekend was Labor Day. And so we went, did I say Labor Day? Memorial Day. My goodness, I'm jumping way too far ahead. I don't want to be Labor Day already. Anyways, we went to town almost every single day that weekend. So then we ended up eating out a lot more often than we probably would have, right? And so it's been a crazy month. So it started off with my daughter's birthday party, which went perfectly as planned. It was a really nice day. It was a really nice party, and we don't normally have those nice parties, so I was super stoked that it went so smoothly and that everyone got along and that it was happy and fun, right? Because when you get 30 to 40 people gathered in one area, it can get a little, you never know if something's going to break out and a fight's going to start, right? Or at least in my family, that's the case. But anyways, and then we ended up going and picking up my nephew, or what we thought we were going to do was go and pick up my nephew, because on our way there, we found out that his flight was delayed. So I'm like, oh no, that means that we're going to be driving back in the dark and not getting home till 1 o'clock in the morning. And then the next day we have all these doctor's appointments that we need to go to. And I was stressing over it. So long story short, it ended up being his flight got canceled because of all of the weather. I think there was a bad storm that day. I believe that's what it was. And so he ended up flying home from the first stop where the plane was. And we ended up making a very expensive date to the big town of Omaha, right? And it wasn't all for naught, because we did end up finding that bunk bed that we were looking for the last time that I was talking about my budget, but we did get the bunk bed that we were looking for, and that was all planned, right? So all that stuff was planned for, and I didn't have to really worry about it. It just felt like a waste of time and money because we didn't end up getting to pick up my nephew, which is not his fault at all. But sometimes you mentally can be like, man, I wish I'd have known this, and then we wouldn't have had to waste all this time and money because it was a really nice day and we could have gotten a lot of stuff done at the house, and your mind just kind of wanders. But it was good to have some time away from the kids because I'm usually with them 100% of the time, and they went and stayed with their grandpa, or I should say that grandpa came to our house and they got to spend time with grandpa and sugar, and they just had a good old time, right? So that stuff, I didn't have to stress over that. It didn't affect the budget a whole lot because it was planned for. Well, then the things that weren't planned for was my husband decided he was going to invite his friend over, a coworker, and we were going to go out and eat. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I don't know where this money is coming from. So we figured out where it was coming from and got that taken care of, right? And then my daughter, and this is another one of those doctor stories that I feel like I'm just living at the doctor's office, decided to shove some toilet paper up her nose. So they sent us to a specialist to, be able to shove stuff up her nose and look up in there and make sure that it doesn't cause a sinus infection, because I wasn't worried about it like making her not able to breathe or anything. But still, it's the second time. She's already shoved a bead up her nose. Why would she continue to shove things up her nose? I do not understand the mind of a 4-year-old, right? If you do, definitely shoot me an email and let's talk so that I can actually connect with her, right? Understand why she decided to do that. Anyways, so then another thing that happened was, so one of those appointments that I was talking about after picking up my nephew was my husband's last ear appointment because he had an ear infection. Well, as soon as that ear infection, we had that last appointment, he now turns around and has a rash on his foot. Kind of like we couldn't decide if it was like poison ivy or poison oak or if it was something of that sort. Like even the doctors weren't sure what it was. But still, another day at the doctor's office, right? And then, like I already said, we ate out more than we should have, and we bought some soffit and fascia and drip edge for our house, which again, that was already planned for. Like we knew we were going to have to buy that. We were actually super excited that we were able to buy it from the same location that my dad bought it because, so long story short, I bought my house that I grew up in from my dad, and he had already started the soffit and fascia project. Well, then he proceeds to tell us that the place that he bought it from was out of that color. And all he bought was enough to do the north and south sides with a little bit of maybe one of the other sides. So we still had more we had to buy, right? And we're like, oh, well, I guess we've got 2 more dormers and 2 more sides of the house to do to match it. Hopefully we can find a match. So when they had it, we were stoked and we bought it straight up so that we knew it was going to be the same color. And it may have been a little bit more than if we would have went through like Menards or something, but he had already bought it. And again, I just wanted it to match, right? So that is how my month went. And even though I feel like I threw the budget out the window because I didn't really sit down and look at everything, because I had my budget set up and I have my base budget where everything's just transferring where it needs to go, and I know that I can spend the money in each account and not have to worry about whether I'm going to go over budget in those accounts. That makes me feel so much more secure to know that even if I don't go out and allocate the remainder of what needs to go into like other savings accounts or to pay down debt, like even if we do end up spending that money instead of putting it towards our financial goals, I don't have to worry about like not having gas money, not having grocery money, not having like some fun spending money, even if we do go overboard and continue to spend the remainder, right? And I know that it can feel super stressful when you feel like you can't stick to the budget because of like struggling for the gas and the family like spending, the food and all of that, because that's where you get a little stressful. When I say I throw my budget out the window, it's because I didn't go back in and put the remainder in a savings account or towards something, that I didn't put every single dollar towards a job. That's when I just feel like a failure. And I want you to know that these months come. Life gets busy, things happen, doctor's bills come, and you just have to be okay with sometimes your financial goals not becoming like into fruition as fast as what you'd like it to be. There are going to be some months where you are on top of it and you are going 100 miles an hour and things are going great. And then there are going to be times where life is just a struggle. And so, yes, I feel like I set myself up for failure because I didn't go in and I didn't allocate the remainder of my finances. But when I sit down and I look at it, even though I felt like I threw the budget out the window, I didn't, because I still had plenty of money to put towards my payment, the extra $1,000 that I want to put towards my account. I still have money that can like go into savings accounts and all of this, so I don't have to stress over it. Yeah, maybe I went in and transferred a few too many times out of the wrong account and I have to go put money back into the accounts from like the savings account, because my husband, so we have a digital cash envelope system, and he only has 2 of those cards. One is a gas card and one is his spending card, because he doesn't want a whole bunch of cards in his wallet, right? So I have the remainder of the cards for like the family spending and the bills account and what's the other one? The savings buckets account. So when we go and buy things, for instance, like the soffit and fascia, he just transferred it from an easy account that he knew he could pull money from. And I just need to go and put the money from the savings account that it goes from back into the account that it goes into. And when I feel like a failure again, it's because I'm putting more work on myself, having to be able to transfer that stuff instead of just saying, hey, I know you're going to do that. Take this card with you so I don't have to do extra work, right? So we really just have to define what failing at a budget means. So to you, does that mean, do you feel like a failure because you aren't able to, AKA stick to your grocery budget or your gas budget? Or are you talking about the whole overall thing? Because a budget lives and breathes. It's never the same. It's constantly changing. And if you're not allowing that to happen, you're not figuring out what's actually happening. I kind of use the word happen a lot right there. But what I'm trying to say is that when you are sitting there trying to figure out like why you're not able to stick to the super rigid budget, it can make you feel like a failure, kind of like I feel right now, because I do like a super rigid budget so that I can have more remainder. I can have more leftover income, and I'm like putting quotes around that because I like the word remainder over leftover, but I digress. So that I can put that towards more of my dreams and my desires instead of the things that I want in the moment or my needs. Like I want to get those. I would love to get down to a system where only 50% of my income is going towards the things that I need. 20 of it can go towards things that I want, and then 10 of it to giving and 20 of it to saving. So I know that's a little bit more than what most people do. They usually do like the 50-30-20 rule, and I kind of split it up a little bit more than that, or like the 70-10-20, and I guess it kind of is 70-10-20, which is 50 plus 20 of the needs and wants kind of thing, but that's what my goal is. And so when I have that that remainder that I can allocate towards things that I really want to be able to save up for and that are actually going to move the needle in my life and get me like a house that's going to keep me happy, or go on a vacation or go see family, that's when I get super excited. And when I can live on a tighter budget, then I have more to put towards those goals. And so we have to give ourselves grace. If you're the way I am and you want to be able to put more towards the things that you want in your future instead of right now, and you do end up spending some of that remainder on things that you need right now, like doctor's bills or going on an expensive date to a town 4 hours away, then you just got to give yourself grace and understand that these things are going to happen. And that if you really just remember that a budget breathes, it comes in one way, it goes out another way. Some months it can be super easy, and some months it can be super hard because you never know what's going to happen. And so that's what this budget this past month has really just brought to my attention, and that I really feel like sharing with you, is that you just need to give yourself grace and to define what is your definition of sticking to your budget, and why do you feel like you're not sticking to your budget? Like, what is it that is making you feel like you are failing every single time? If it is something like tactical, like you're not able to keep to the grocery budget and you don't know why, or you are not able to pay all of your bills because you are spending for things that you want instead of paying your bills right away, then those are things that, yes, you need to sit down and you need to figure out. But a lot of the budget, because it breathes and it's never the same, and we are perfectionists and we want it to be the same, we want to be simple, we want it to be easy and to be the same every single time, it's not going to be that way. A budget will not be the same like that. Yes, there are things that you can set on a recurring schedule that is the same every single month, but you have to still allow yourself a little bit of wiggle room before that can become a set in stone process. So like when you work with me, we look at the things that you are already doing, and we look at what you want it to be like. So say you're spending like $2,000 on groceries, which is extensive. like that's a little over the top, but I just want you to understand the difference. But say you're spending like $2,000 on groceries and you want it to be like go down to $1,000. Well, if you just completely cut it straight from $2,000 to $1,000 and you cut out that $1,000 without slowly tapering it down, you're not going to be able to do it. Like, it's going to be difficult, it's going to be hard, and you're going to end up throwing that budget out the window because you cannot stick to that and you cannot follow that. Like, it's like not possible because your mind is so used to what you were doing. That is why it is so important to figure out what it is that you're doing, what you want it to do, and slowly get yourself down there so that you don't stress yourself out and overwhelm yourself. And then it really just lives and breathes the way your budget should be. And it slowly comes in one month differently and goes out a month differently. Like it changes. And that's what you need to be ready for, is the changes, because life is never going to be the same. Sometimes you're going to be in town a lot more and you're going to spend money on eating out more than you thought you should. And maybe you could have stopped the eating out by putting the money away into a different account that wasn't easily accessible, but then you still would have had to go because of doctor's appointments, and you still would have had to eat because it was during those lunch times, right? Or the supper time. So grace is really something that you need to embrace. I'm a poet and I didn't know it, right? But grace is something that you should embrace, just because the budget is never going to stay the same, no matter how hard you try. And if you try to keep it the same and never let it flex, that is when you start feeling like a failure. And that is when you start throwing the budget out the window because you are unable to stick to it. Now, before I hop off, I want you to know that you don't have to do this alone. Budgeting is a mindset game. No matter what you say, budgeting is a mindset game. You can have whatever budget out there in the world you want laid out in front of you. You could think it's simple, or the person that, is selling it to you can think it's simple. But if you don't have the mindset or the consistency to stick to the budget regardless, then you're not going to be able to stick to it, because it takes a different kind of mindset. It's essentially like, I heard my coach say this about consistency, and I really love it, but it's like when you are with your husband, you don't just part of the time, love him just because you feel like it and you're happy, and then the other day you're sad and upset and you don't love him because it's harder. You're still going to love him. You may not like him in the moment, but you're still going to love him all the way through it, no matter what. It's the same way with your budget. You have to figure out how you're going to stay consistent with it, even in those hard times. Even when you don't want to and you want to just throw the system out the window, like what steps can you put in place to keep yourself consistent? Kind of like my digital cash envelope system, where everything just transfers automatically. And even when I'm struggling, I know that that's there. And even if I don't go in and allocate the remainder to other things that I'd like it to go to, I still know that I am going to have that money to pay for my bills. I still know that I am going to have that money to buy groceries, to pay for the gas that we need to go places. I am confident that that's not going to go anywhere, right? And so instead of staying stuck in this cycle of stressing over the fact that you can't budget and you just want to throw it out the window, I want to challenge you to break it. I think that it's time for you to take your first step. Towards financial success, towards being able to stick to the budget with consistency rather than motivation, because motivation is fleeting. Motivation only gets you so far, but if you are consistent with your budget and you find a way to set up a system that's going to keep you consistent, then you know that your budget is going to continue to flow and going to continue to breathe life instead of stress. And so I want to challenge you to take your first step and book a call with me so that I can show you how you can set up a budget on One Income that makes budgeting simple and easy to stick to and bring you consistency instead of motivation. So if this sounds like something that really intrigues you and that you would like to learn more about, go to calendly.com/Molly Bunnell and book a call today. That's calendly.com/Molly with a Y, B as in boy, ENELL. And with that being said, I pray that today's episode has opened your eyes to giving yourself grace, to being able to set up systems that are going to bring you life instead of stress. And if you want more or you have questions, come over to the free Facebook group. The link is in the show notes. It's also called the One Income Family Community if you want to search it. But come over and let's connect. Let's get to know each other. Let me help you through your budgeting struggles so that you can start being consistent and stick to your budget without the stress of without the stress of whether you are going to hurt your bills or I keep wanting to say budget. But those things that you're scared of, whether you're going to be able to take care of your family, essentially. So definitely come over. Let's connect over in the Facebook group. Otherwise, I will see you again right here next Tuesday on another episode of the One Income Family Podcast. Before you go, I hope this episode has ignited a fire inside of you, and I pray that it creates long-lasting impact. Did you know that you too can impact other one-income families? All you have to do is leave a written review and you help get the podcast in the hands of other mamas in need. You can also text this episode to that friend who is also knee-deep in the same kind of chaos as you and inspire them to make a change. Also, your review lets me know that you're enjoying the show, and that lights me up. I get so excited to hear from you. Another great way that we can connect, though, is through the One Income Family community over on Facebook. So after you're done leaving that 5-star review, head on over to the community where you will find other mamas working their way out of the chaos. You can ask your questions and connect with others who truly understand what you are going through. I cannot wait to connect with you in the community. Until then, I will see you right here next week on another episode of the One Income Family podcast.